It will be the Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy, a divisive performance, a Rorschach test of a performance by Brock Purdy in a comeback win. Kyle on the comeback win in the divisional round. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and everywhere you find your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Woo, Detroit Lions. This was the matchup, Croc, right? We came into this and we were asked before the wild card round of playoffs started, who are the teams? Who are the matchups that might be the most difficult? Who do we expect to be there in the end that the 49ers might face in the NFC Championship game if they get there, if the Super Bowl, if they get there? And we said, Detroit Lions, they're a little bit more of the unknown in the NFC. They're playing some of the best ball. They play a brand of football that will be very interesting against the San Francisco 49ers. And it's the Ravens, the team that already beat the 49ers this year with a superstar quarterback that's really difficult to play against in Lamar Jackson. And it's the Kansas City Chiefs with the boogeyman. And he's special and he finds ways to win even when he doesn't have the weapons that he's had in the past in Patrick Mahomes and those Kansas City Chiefs. So it's one of those teams, and they got to beat two of those teams if they're going to hoist that Lombardi, Croc. But first up, the Detroit Lions, and you absolutely cannot look past the Detroit Lions, and you absolutely can't play like you did against the Packers, against the Detroit Lions, and expect to have an opportunity to come back and win that football game on Sunday.
You definitely can't. A lot of weapons. I really like what they're doing there offensively. And if you kind of talk to Detroit people, I have a tweet pulled up here from Detroit Illustrated, and he kind of went through kind of like their main players and how they kind of stack up or how he take them over the 49ers kind of main players. So he starts off with Goff. He has the greater than, less than sign and is pointing towards or is open towards Goff. So he thinks he'd take Goff over Purdy. It went to Penei Sewell. He would take Penei Sewell over Trent Williams, which I think is crazy, but Penei Sewell, he has been really good. And they're a part of a really good offensive line that Detroit has. Amon-Ra St. Brown, first team All-Pro. He said he'd take that guy over either Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. Gibbs, he said CMC. So that's why I knew he kind of lost his stuff a little bit when he said he'd take Gibbs over CMC. And then he said he would take Hutchinson over Bosa, which Hutchinson, sneaky, really good year. Every time I watch him, productive, chasing quarterbacks, moving them. So, former defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa, would I take Hutchinson over Nick Bosa? Like, no, absolutely not. But I think he does have the argument from the standpoint of they do have a lot of guys playing well. And when you look at kind of how the team is built, the confidence that the coach has exuberated through the rest of his team, this is a team that is here. And I bet if you asked him, not at all surprised.
So this was a Twitter person? Who was this?
Yes, this was on Twitter. Yeah.
What I need the at, because there's two things. First, one, the Lions are really good and they have a lot of good players, and a lot of the players that were mentioned in that are good. But I also need the at so I can mute that user, because I don't ever need to hear one of their takes ever again with some of the things I just heard from what you just said from them. We're just starting talking crazy. We can stop at Trent Williams. We can stop at Nick Bosa and Hutchinson right there. I mean, that's
a good player. I think he was serious and he watched those guys all year. But I will say they are good. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Penei Sewell, even Jared Goff for this team. Those guys, Gibbs, and how strong he's kind of come on as of late. Would I ever take Gibbs over? There's not a day in hell I would do that. But Gibbs, they have guys that are good. And if you watch the 49ers we'll just say the last big games that people watch the 49ers. Christmas Day against the Ravens, 49ers lost. You watch the 49ers.
You know what this is right here? I'm trying to make it a symbol with my hands. It's a home because that is a homer take from that individual Lions fans. They have a lot of good players,
But
but
if you watch the 49ers versus the Packers
yeah,
and you don't think the world of the guys that they had that were kind of doing well against the 49ers, and you look at our quarterback is better than Jordan Love, or our running backs because they got Montgomery and they have Gibbs. Like, were they better than our receivers are better than them? And well, they don't even have a pass rusher on Green Bay that's stacks up with Hutchinson. I could see a scenario where they look at that and just say, these 49ers aren't as good as everybody says.
I mean, I could absolutely see a scenario where a non-ball knower who doesn't watch very much other teams would see their own players all year long, love their guys, and see some highlights of some wonky games from other players and be like, "Oh, our guys are better than that." I can absolutely see.
Yes.
You watched the 49ers all year. You watched the Lions all year. They're both good, and there's really good players on both sides, but you wouldn't be putting a greater than with anybody on the other side of Trent Williams. You wouldn't be putting a greater than with Hutchinson over Nick Bosa. Hutchinson's a really nice player. He's not in Bosa's league yet. We'll wait and see if he pulls down a Defensive Player of the Year award at some point. He doesn't see.
I didn't think Hutchinson would be this good. In every game I watch, he looks good. Like, so I'm not Bosa, but I'm just saying, like, just in general.
Yeah, you can be good and also not as good as some of the best players in the NFL. And that's how good the 49ers roster is. It's still better than, certain guys. And that's not to downplay how good Penei Sewell is. Great. Like, Penei Sewell is super athletic, getting out on the move, out on the run. Jared Goff is really, for a player that was cast aside, I'm rooting for Jared Goff. Local kid, North Bay high school grad, right? Like he's a local kid coming home to play, but road golf and home golf are two different guys. And
one thing I didn't know,
what?
And I didn't realize it. Maybe you didn't. There's 2 All-Pro tackles on that first team. Penei Sewell is one of them with Trent Williams.
Yeah.
So again, that goes towards them thinking like, no, this guy he's legit. Like, we think he's better than Trent Williams, which we wouldn't say that, but I didn't know he was first team All-Pro. I knew he was good. I know he's been good.
Really good player. He's a top 6 draft pick and a super talented guy. He's got to put some time in to get to Trent Williams level. Really good player. But when you go down the list and you start saying my guy's better, and it's not even that the 49ers guys are better than the Lions guys. That's not it. This is a really good matchup to just say, oh, we got a greater than sign here, greater than sign here. That's kind of disrespectful to anybody, even if it was a 49ers fan. And I'm sure there's 49ers fans out there. So 49ers fans, don't do that. Don't do Purdy greater than sign over Jared Goff, Trent Williams greater than sign. Because it doesn't matter. First of all, we don't get, and we saw this a lot with Packers week. We don't get to argue it. We've seen big time media people arguing at other big time media people. You don't get to decide the game by how good you argue it before it happens. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how this works. So I can't wait to see how this all works out. I think the Detroit Lions fans are definitely a different vibe than the Packers fans, a little more happy to be there than Green Bay Packers fans. And I know you've been kind of looking for some, so that's why you solicited some of the tweets that you are getting, because you're asking for it, because you're trying to take on some folks. But I think the Lions fan base is wired a little bit different. Here's a good example. The Lions fan base is more like the Golden State Warriors fan base, whereas like the Packers fan base and like the Cowboys and Eagles, they're more like the Lakers fan base, where they're just a little bit out of their minds a little bit. You know what I mean? I think it's a great way to put it for those folks who also follow the NBA.
I disagree once you mentioned the Los Angeles Lakers, but I will say this. You are right on this as far as the Detroit Lions fan base. I have a buddy of mine that I played high school football with, and he does our film stuff for our 7-on-7 team. And I know he's a Detroit Lions fan. So I asked him, like, you ready for this game? He said, Croc, to be honest, we won 2 playoff games. That's the most success we've had since I've been alive. So anything that happens from here on out, I am happy. So he doesn't even care. Now, my other buddies, shout out to DeAndre Hawthorne, basketball coach at Edison High School. I text him and he said, yeah, y'all time is up. We're going to beat y'all. So you got 2 different sides there. I think my guy who's a twin, Burgos, I think Burgos is a little bit more realistic with how this potentially will turn out.
Lions played a cleaner game against the Bucs than the 49ers did against the Green Bay Packers. That is for sure. Battle tested, though, are those 49ers. I want to talk about Purdy's performance a little bit. Kyle Shanahan said something that really kind of pulled it all together about the 49ers, and I think is a huge statement about who this team is and why you should not expect the same performance next week as you saw last week from the 49ers, especially to start that game. And Jair Brown, the rookie, sitting for veteran Logan Ryan, was brought in mid-season and didn't have the greatest game. So we can get into that stuff because we've been asked a lot about some of these things, and maybe a little mailbag as well to continue throughout the week. And getting ready for Matt Derry of Locked On Lions on Thursday for a crossover Thursday for this NFC Championship game. We've got you every day. So many angles here to cover for the playoffs on Locked On 49ers, and a lot more to come on this episode next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL postseason is getting really hot now. Championship Sunday is coming, and you can get in on all of that action at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. And all you got to do is place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, on that first $5 bet. And then you can roll through with $150 in bonus bets on live same game parlays. Find new bets in the new Explore tab. A million ways to bet at FanDuel. We're talking NFL playoff games, over-unders. We're talking about specials. We're talking about draft props. We're talking about NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball is coming. Which coaches are going where? Tons of ways to bet, tons of ways to play, and the Parlay Hub. That's my favorite place to be at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNFL and make your first bet a layup. That is FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I want to go to Twitter and bring up a tweet, Croc. This is from Robe, and he says, "No more Purdy talk, please. Is wide 9 the right defense versus the Lions? How do we generate push up the middle with Hargrave, Armstead, Kinlaw, etc.? We need to pressure Goff in his face. Our offense will be fine." There will be Purdy talk. We will get to some Purdy talk in a little bit here. And I do kind of want to avoid some of the crazy Purdy discourse that is out there this week, and I knew it was going to be coming. We do have to talk about some things, and I think Croc and I have a really good objective way of speaking about such things, and we live in the gray area where most of the planet is. Some of the sports planet wants to not live in reality and in the gray area with the rest of the world. But more on Purdy, more on the comeback win. But as for the Lions, and we got plenty of time to talk this week about the Detroit Lions. We're going to get totally into the weeds on X's and O's and matchups, and we got plenty of time to do that. Keys to victory. We've got that Locked On crossover coming up.
Yeah, we got the crossover, and they know more. And we can watch a Lions game, but they know more about the Detroit Lions and exactly how things, that's when it's a great time to bounce things off each other. When 49ers have wide 9, how do you guys combat that? And maybe they do some things like Green Bay, kind of sit off those edges with receivers. You saw them do it against Bosa. You saw them do it against Chase Young and spring off some big runs. But that's a conversation for Thursday's episode.
Like that pin and pull. And we saw a lot of that with the Detroit Lions as well. The 49ers run the scheme they run. They're not going to come be like, oh, hey, we're a Tampa 2 defense now. Like they run the scheme they run. And that's true on both sides of the ball. And obviously there's tweaks and there's things you're going to install. There's things you're going to be ready for and different ways to play different things. It's more about how you play your wide 9, right? It's about how you play your front. It's going to come. That Detroit watched the film. They know that certain things are working, certain things they already do well. And they've got some really good running backs and really good offensive line, a really good running game. That's going to be huge. The 49ers are absolutely going to work on that. As far as the other part of the question, just simple answers here. Yeah, definitely need to pressure Goff. He's not great with pressure. In fact, he's a different guy. He's a different guy on the road usually. So road Goff with pressure, that's one of the big recipes. That will be one of the keys. But the other part of it from Robe in the question here, how do we generate push up the middle with Hargrave, Armstead, Kinlaw? That's up to them. Like you don't press a button and say, Hargrave, Kinlaw, Armstead, forgot to tell you last week, we want to get pressure this week. I forgot to mention that before we played the pack. Can we get some like what do you do? Like, that they know what they need to do. They're going to be trying to do it, and the other guys are trying to stop them. So it's not how do we get pressure? It's Kinlaw, Armstead, Hargrave, get pressure. That's the answer. Go get pressure.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good opportunity to get a defensive line guy on, right? Because in my head, I know there's certain things you could do, some stunts to kind of maybe help if you can't just take guys straight on and drive them back. Do some stunts, kind of do that defensive holding. Every once in a while, you'll see that being called where you go to stunt, you kind of pull a guy and the guy stunting in, coming around. Yeah, right. And it might even be Fred Warner though, kind of coming off somebody's butt to come clean. So
bring an extra guy. Maybe that's the key. Maybe that's the answer. Yeah.
And you can still rush 4. Let's say you want to bring Fred Warner. You can bring 4 with 4 being Fred Warner, but then you would drop an edge off in the coverage. And sometimes you see that. I know the 49ers hated that fans hated that when they did that with like Solomon Thomas at times. But that's just a different way of trying to generate pressure, but still having 7 guys back in coverage.
But you got to stop the run. First things first. And the 49ers were not good at that on Saturday, Croc. And this is another good team with a good offensive line, probably a better offensive line in a lot of ways, and a couple of different, very good running backs too. So that's going to be something that the 49ers coaching staff and Steve Wilkes is going to be pounding in their guys all week. You got to stop the run. They got to be better at that. And one of the things Croc, help me out. You're 265 pounds. You're a defensive end. And a 204-pound wide receivers trying to block you off the end, that guy needs to regret that. Even if it's a successful block on you, even if he didn't see it coming, he's got to pay the price for that. That was too easy, that pin and pull that the Packers were running.
The crazy thing is Bosa didn't make the receiver pay at all. And I was so confused by that. That happened early in the game. I'm like, Bosa, you got it. You let a receiver steal you off. This isn't the old days. When I was playing, you had, crack replays. You still have crack replays. But when I was playing, you had crack replays. You see the receiver crack down on the edge. They might, really try to come and decleat them, knock them off their feet. I think it happened rookie year, Nick Bosa, with Larry Fitzgerald really cracking down. That was not what was happening here. Here it was kind of like what we see. We see Brandon Ayuk do it a lot. Brandon Ayuk sometimes blocking guys. I remember Michael Parsons got really upset. It was a touchdown run in the wild card round, 49ers in Dallas. They had a touchdown run off the edge. I think it was Elijah Mitchell, and Ayuk just stayed on the block, blocking Parsons. That can't happen to Nick Bosa. That can't happen to Chase Young.
Happened a bunch of times to Chase Young. Like, I need to see more fight. Even if they get you, it's like, you walled me off. You got to pay the price for that. You got to make that wide receiver not want to try to do that again to you.
Now he did throw the receiver to the ground late on that. It was the big run, right? The 50-yard run or whatever that was. That was one where the receiver did his job, walled him off just long enough. And I don't know if Chase Young didn't realize it was a receiver because first he kind of like spun out of it. Mm-hmm. And I think when he saw it was a receiver, he like just tossed him out the way. But by then it's too late. The receiver already did his job, and the running back is to the second level already. So definitely can't allow that. You can't allow, St. Brown to come and try to pin you down there and allow Gibbs or Montgomery. Montgomery's more of the bruiser. So you got a little bit of a thunder and lightning thing going on there with their 2 running backs. But you can't let Gibbs get to the outside because you're letting a receiver pin you and wall off everything. That it just can't happen. Now, what you need to happen is and everybody's upset about Kyle Shanahan running the ball with Jawan Jennings, and we found out like maybe he wasn't supposed to be there. But regardless, it didn't matter who was there. The play was going to be blown up because I believe it was 2 guys. I want to say Trent Williams and George Kittle having a combo block. Trent got to the next level, and I mean Clark just destroyed the play, just blew it up. Like, oh, you want to have this guy block me? I'm going to blow this play up. And that's what he did. And you would have liked to see some of that from the 49ers edge rush. Oh, you want this receiver to blow? I'm going to blow this play up and push everything back. And it just didn't happen a few times in that game.
Gibbs is super explosive too, even more so than Aaron Jones. And, he's faster than Christian McCaffrey, a different guy, but a really good receiver as well. And I think that's what they saw when they drafted him top 10 is they want, or 11, where did they pick? 8, 10, 11? Pick 11, I think it was, that Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted. That's what that's what they saw. They're like, that was amazing what the Niners are doing with Christian McCaffrey. I want some of that. And so that's what they're trying to get. He only had 9 carries, but he was super impactful on just 9 carries against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you can't let him get past that first level. He's a really explosive dude. So a lot to clean up, Croc. And that brings me to what Kyle Shanahan said about the 49ers and how they played and how they finished the football game against the Green Bay Packers. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime, and it's big game time, right? At Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all users get $100 off. New special offer here. All users $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code Vegas100. Killer last minute deals at Gametime, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime right now. All Gametime users get $100 off a big game ticket with code Vegas100. Terms apply. Just download the Gametime app and use code Vegas100. That is VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to that game, use code Locked On for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Otherwise, download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Kyle Shanahan talking about the 49ers performance and the 49ers game. And clearly watching that game, we know the 49ers were not playing well for most of that game. But the way Kyle Shanahan talked about it was really interesting because he talked about how and it was funny the way he put it. He's basically like every single person on the team, offense, defense, quarterback, offensive line, receivers, defense, the offense was screwing up plays that should have been first downs. They weren't first downs because the players were screwing it up. On defense, there was the stuff they were screwing up. Said they weren't coaching well. The special teams was bad. Everybody played a part into screwing something up that should have been a first down, or on defense should have prevented a first down and didn't. Big plays were happening. Everyone played a part in them not playing well. And then he said, but nobody folded. Everybody was ready to play the entire game. The character that the team showed when the opportunity was there, everybody made a play. Christian McCaffrey made plays. Brandon Ayuk made catches. Juwan Jennings going up to make a big catch, making big blocks. Effort stayed throughout the game. Brock Purdy making throws at the end of the game when it was touch and go for a lot of that football game. The defense coming up big, creating turnovers, creating stops against the Packers offense. Moody makes a 52-yard kick in the rain after the block. And so everybody contributed to playing bad, and then everybody hung in there, did not fold, and contributed to the 49ers ultimately coming back to win that football game. And that character, that not quitting, is really important. And it's okay to admit the 49ers did not play a good football game. If they play a game like that again, they should not expect to win a Lombardi Trophy, and draft season will start a lot sooner, Croc. But they have the stuff, the special stuff that champions do have to not quit and to not fold like the Cowboys did and not lose and give up 42 points to the Green Bay Packers, right? And so sort of both sides of the coin to that game, some downside to how they played that they can absolutely fix. Weather's going to be good, 65 and sunny in Santa Clara on Sunday, and something that you just can't teach, which is the character that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have compiled in their players on the San Francisco 49ers roster.
Well, the 49ers, and again, you've called them the ultimate front runners, right? Like just amazing. They get on you, they can pour on any amount of points. And we know they can do that. And if they did that to the Lions, I don't think anyone would be surprised. But the bigger question was, if the game gets a little weird, it gets a little ugly, can you pull that victory out? And so far, for various reasons, the 49ers were 0-4 in that type of situation. 0-5 if you want to count the Sam Darnold game, but we don't count that. All backups. But they were 0-4 in that specific situation. So the biggest reason why I, at the very least, wanted to see them doing it in the regular season was because you knew in the postseason, you're going to run into that. So just can you check that box on just knowing we can do it? And it felt like, of course, you have the team, you have the guys, you got the players, of course, you got the coaches. Of course, you should be able to pull out that type of victory. But they just hadn't done it. And lo and behold, their first playoff game, that happened, something that I just knew would come up eventually. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not have the most confidence that they would pull it out. My brother Donald, he's standing next to me. He's like, "What's your confidence meter on a scale of 0?" He's pissing me off because it's just in my ear the whole time. "What's your confidence meter on a scale of 0 to 10?" And it could not be high because I hadn't seen them. I couldn't go to, well, man, I saw us do this against the Browns in the rain. Like, no, we're fine. Or I saw us do this late against the Vikings, and no, we'll be fine. Or every time I went back to those games, it was like, ended in a loss, ended in a loss, ended in a loss. So my confidence meter wasn't very high, and I wanted to believe that they could pull it off. And it was great to see them not fold. I thought they almost did. When you kick a field goal, you get within 4 points, and then you get within 4, then you give up an extra long kickoff return. It's like, okay.
Yeah, the kick return was like, wow, it's not meant to be. It's not happening. There was many times in that game that it's not happening. Coming out of the second half, so there's a blocked field goal. Because remember, it was like, oh, cool, double dip. Get a touchdown here, get a touchdown. Now you're up big in the third quarter, right? The Shanahan double dip. The 49ers have done it a lot of times. They're trying to do that. They want to receive that second half kick, want to score right before half. Kyle Shanahan even slow plays it so much at the end of the first half because he does not want the other team to get the ball again. He wants to end with a score. If it's a field goal, it's a touchdown, whatever it is, even if it's conservative, he wants to end it with the ball. He wants to get the ball back and go down and score. What do they do? Block field goal, and then you come back and 3 and out, and then they go down and score on you. And so it's 14 to, what was the score? 14 to 7, I guess, at that point, right? So then they went for 2 and got and so instead of you double dipping, you didn't get anything. They came back and were up 14-7 on you, and you used up your receiving the second half kick. And and then the kick return, it was like 3.5 quarters of that game. Like, this is not happening, but they were still close. They were still in it, and they were able to make those plays. It was really an unbelievable game. And again, it's like it's okay to recognize things you got to fix, and then recognize how this team is wired, and know that they're always going to be in games because there's not going to be any quit in them.
Right. And it was weird because you did feel like, man, like this is such a tough situation, but you're not down much. And that kind of sparked the whole thing with Keyshawn Johnson. And he's talking about, not a comeback win, blah, blah, blah. And I never thought about what constitutes a comeback win. Is a certain amount of points. But once he said, I started kind of wrapping my brain around it. I'm like, is a 1-score game like truly a comeback win? With, like, you're right there. You're right next to that team the whole time. And the 49ers were right there within striking range, but they just could not figure out how to make the play to get them over the top. And you kick a field goal, you get within 4, and next thing you know, man, you got, Brock Purdy saving his Jimmy Garoppolo performance for the end of the game and coming through and completing 6 out of 7 passes, and Christian McCaffrey finished it off. I was sweating, dude. I was sweating. I'm glad we didn't come on immediately. I did the thing with Bleacher Report. I was sweating after while being on live. I had a towel and I'm having to wipe my bald head. It was fun to watch, and I love those games that aren't just like boring to watch a victory, but it showed me that, like Kyle, 49ers can win any type of game now. I strongly believe it, and we wanted to see that game where everything was ugly. It looks, even Eric Crocker, the most optimistic person in the world, starts to lose a little bit of confidence in what's going on, and you pull it out. And now you go on, you play Detroit, and I feel like no matter how that game is going, the 49ers will find a way to win.
And by the way, shout out to all the listeners in Riverside, California, where you were doing the 7-on-7 tournament, right? And I think you ran into some faithful out there.
It was like we're walking around and like, okay, where we're gonna watch the game? Is there like just kind of a little bar or a restaurant? And we see a 49er fan walk into a spot, and we're like, oh, well, maybe there's some couple fans in there, watch the game, and you kind of be around some faithful. I open the door. It's like 1,000 49er fans in there. I'm like, what is going on? So that was pretty cool.
Man, they're strong. I always hear from people. Heard someone yesterday from Brazil. They're like, hey, why you guys have Portuguese ads? And I was like, well, do you live in Portugal? And he's like, I live in Brazil. Like, okay, it makes sense. So you get some inserted ads that geolocated. You get the Portuguese ads. I'm not the one reading the Portuguese, that's for sure. I'm 1/8 Portuguese, by the way, though.
My wife is half Portuguese.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Her dad's Portuguese.
And anyway, yeah, Australia, we got UK, we got Scotland, we got listeners everywhere, dude. It's fantastic. Love that. There's a few things that we got to push into tomorrow's episode. We got Winky Wednesday coming up. We didn't have a chance to talk about Jair Brown, Logan Ryan, and the decision to go with Logan Ryan instead of Jair Brown. And Kyle did talk about that a little bit. And we might see that get flipped back to Jair Brown. I'm not sure. Doesn't sound like they want to put a lot on the rookie. And more about Brock Purdy's performance this week, Croc, because there's something I noticed against the Packers. And it's not the first time a team has played Brock Purdy one certain way. And I think it's something that Purdy's going to continue to see, and he's going to have to work through it. And it has nothing to do with the precipitation during a football game. So we'll get into that later in the week. Locked On 49ers, Locked On Lions crossover Thursday. Of course, keys to victory. It is championship week, Croc, and we got it covered for you every single day right here on Locked On 49ers. Make sure you guys are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I are back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson. Right here. Locked On 49ers.
Subscribe to this video. Subscribe to my dad's podcast.
Hey, man, we'll catch you on Sunday.